All right, so now on to the serious stuff. We're going to talk about post-bid due diligence in this video. So this is what we're doing after we've done our pre-bid due diligence, submitted an offer, negotiated a deal, and now we're trying to figure out if it's going to be okay to close on this asset or not. So the first thing you're going to want to do is verify the value of the property. This is really one of the most critical steps. I guess really all these steps are kind of critical at this phase. So in your pre-bid due diligence, you may have looked up some online values, looked at some Google images. At this point, it's really important to get eyes on the property. I've not had this happen, but I've heard of some extreme cases where friends of mine were doing post-bid due diligence and the house actually wasn't there. It had been demolished beforehand, or there was some really serious damage, like a tree falling on it and things like that. So you definitely want to get eyes on the property and get a value. You can order a BPO from a realtor. You can get a property inspection report, or sometimes you just get photos either from a local realtor. I'll hire people on Craigslist sometimes, and then sometimes run my own comps to figure out what the value is. Now, with notes, one of the things you got to understand, and it's a little bit of an extra risk factor in notes, is you're not going to be able to see the inside of the property. So what you're going to do is look at the outside of the property, and then you're going to have to draw your own conclusions about what the inside might look at. It is definitely a risk. However, it's one of the reasons we can get better deals on notes as well. So you definitely do not want to disturb the borrower, approach the borrower in any way. It's actually illegal. You can get in some serious trouble for doing that. And then we're going to want to pull title work. So generally I pull an O&E report, or an ownership and encumbrances report. It's kind of like a mini title report. Um, and that's where we're going to get all the information on the chain of title. So we're going to want to make sure that the person selling us the note is the person who actually owns it. And we're going to want to look at that chain of title to see if there are any flaws. We're going to want to know, are there any liens outstanding on this? And this will also show us delinquent taxes and some other things. So this is really a vital step. You can pull these from Pro Title or Dickie Baldwin at Baldwin Advisory Group, or a number of different places, usually about 75 to 100 bucks to pull the O&E report. Now, even if you know enough about title to be dangerous, which is where I would kind of classify myself, you're going to want to have an attorney review the paperwork as well. This is another super important thing. Some states will have little nuances or rules that could be a problem based on how the paperwork is put together that you're not necessarily going to be aware of, but a foreclosure attorney in that state is going to know. So this is usually anywhere from 100 to a couple $100. Highly recommend having an attorney go over everything before you actually close. I'll also typically make some phone calls, especially if it's a non-performing note. So if this is a deal where I'm basing this on the property being owner occupied, you'll get some of this information when you get your photos. A lot of times if somebody's living there, it's kind of obvious. There's a car um, in the driveway. They've got, things on the porch. But other times it's not as obvious. So especially if it's a non-performing loan, I'll call the utilities, call the water company, call the electric company, and make sure those are still on. I've had it happen more than once where a property is supposed to be owner occupied, and I find out that the utilities were shut off like 9 months ago. That's a bad sign. Also worthwhile talking to code enforcement, and if this happens to be, if it's a problem borrower, if it's like a problem property and the code enforcement officers patch, they're going to know all about it. And sometimes you get lucky even calling a big city, and they will, you'll happen to get the right person who covers that neighborhood. And if there are issues at that property, they will tell you all about them. So making some of those calls is really an important step. Takes a little bit of time, but it's definitely worth doing. Now, after your offer is accepted, your seller should also send you an updated pay history and be able to provide the servicing notes. So you're going to want to go through those. Make sure that the current pay history matches what you reviewed when you went over their tape and put together your offer. Make sure no discrepancies. And then the servicing notes have a lot of gems. A lot of times, every servicer uses a different format. Some servicers don't give you much in the way of notes. Some of them are very cryptic. They'll just say, we spoke with the borrower on this date, won't really say what. Other servicers will give you a lot more information and sometimes have copies of emails back and forth with the borrower, so you can get a really good idea of the history of the loan, what the track record's been with the borrower, and what you might be able to expect going forward. So that's a quick overview of post-bid due diligence. There's obviously a lot more to doing it. You can learn more at fusionnotes.com, or you can also find the systematic due diligence course, which goes into outrageous depth on how to do all of these things. So thanks for now, and I'll see you next time.